Avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. You are being recorded.
And literally when I tell you 3 days, I'm just...
So long to do something like
Go. I would tell that person to just do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in today to another edition of MJR and Friends. This is a special one. I'm sure everyone knows who this man is. If you don't, then you're crazy. But today, special interview with a big inspiration of mine. We are with Tim McKone of NBC10 and 98.5, the Sports Hub. Tim, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to do this.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to hear your story and your inspiration to others. We got a fun episode planned. I got a fun game at the end too. It's going to really throw you off loop. So we're going to get into it. Before we do, you can check us out on Facebook. Michael Ross is doing my Facebook page, the MJR Podcast Family, which includes Meet Up with Mila and the Dab Podcast and Studs Podcast. And we got our YouTube channel as well. And we're going to show Tim's currently unusable Twitter account. But you can still give him a follow, and that's a long story if you listen to Sports Hub. Just a pre-fame, again, I've told you 10 times how big of a fan I am of you. I'm a DJ, and listeners probably think I listen to music all day, but in reality, I listen 90% of the time in my car to the Sports Hub, and 90% of my day is a Sports Hub. So when you're on and they're calling you McKone, and they're just you definitely add a fun element to things, and I want to hear your story. So like the Backstreet Boys said, I got 3 questions for you. Who are you, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't believe someone actually knows who I am. I'll be honest with you. But I'm Tim McKone. I am from Worcester. And I am a sports anchor, like you said, at NBC10 in Providence and at 98.5 the Sports Hub. And so I've been at NBC10 now for close to a little over 4 years now. And then at 98.5, it's been a lot longer than that. I think 6 years, maybe something like that. It's been a bit, which has been exciting because, like you, I grew up a diehard sports talk fan. And look, I went to college to play basketball, and by my sophomore year, my coach was like, "You're not good, so you got to stop playing because we're not going to have you anymore." And so I transitioned over. I still love sports, and so I transitioned just to try to accomplish the goal of talking about sports. And I got lucky in that sense. And that's kind of how things kicked off for me.
Was there a moment in sports? I know obviously a big Brady fan, me too. I'm devastated he's gone. But was there like a big moment in sports history growing up that you like looked at it and said, I want to talk about this. I want to do sports radio. I want to go into sports talk. Like, was there a moment that defined that for you?
Yeah, it's weird. There actually kind of was a moment, and it wasn't really specific in terms of like a play or anything like that. But again, it was coming off of I loved basketball, and I was kind of good in high school, and I'm really, really bad in college. And it was kind of part of my identity. And by the time that they were like, this is not going to happen anymore, I was landscaping in the summer, and I was listening to Dale and Holly because that was my favorite show. On EEI, yeah, exactly. That was my favorite show midday. So I was just cutting grass and crushing Dale and Holly, and I was like, "This is what I want to do. This is what I should do." And so that's kind of what started it. Because like I was a diehard sports talk fan forever. It's funny, like looking back at those shows, like they just talk Red Sox all the time, and I couldn't get enough of it. And now, I mean, it's just I can't do it with the Red Sox. That's a whole other story we'll get into. But that was really the moment. It was landscaping in the summer, being like, you know what? That's actually kind of what I want to do moving forward.
Baseball is so unwatchable right now. It's not even.
That's tough.
I love it. I love the Red Sox, but it's so it is so unwatchable. How did you begin your journey? So, what was like the first step you took? You said in college, your basketball told you, your coach pretty much told you suck. Was the height thing? Was it like you were too short? What happened? Was it like
I was a shoot first point guard that couldn't shoot. That was my biggest issue. And then I don't have a left hand. It was just that it was a disaster. It was a disaster. I went to a small high school in Worcester, and so I made varsity as a freshman, and instead of working hard, I don't have a great work ethic. I just kind of rode that out, and I didn't lift. And so when I first got to college, I remember being in there for the first lift, and it was 135 on the bench, and everyone else is pounding them out, and it just went straight down and didn't come back up for me. And that was probably the first sign that like things weren't going to work out in college for me. Yeah.
What steps you took to get to where you are today? So you said you were at Sports Hub before NBC10, or did I have that opposite?
No. I was at Sports Hub first. So when everything happened, I started doing as many internships as I could. And that's a big piece of advice I would give people, is try to get your foot in the door in as many places as possible. So I started interning at a radio station in Worcester. And that was kind of my first, experience, like being in radio, was interning at TAG. And so I did that as a summer internship. So I would landscape during the day, and then I would go to the internship after that. And when I graduated, I was a double major, communications and education. I was not a good teacher. And so I got a job at TAG right out of college. And so I was doing intermission reports for the Worcester Sharks, which was an AHL team at the time. And I was doing halftime and postgame for Holy Cross football. And so that was my first job out of college. And that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. But leading up to that, I did a ton of internships. It was at TAG, a television station that I ended up working for in Worcester. I interned there. I interned at NBC10 in Providence as well. And then a baseball team, the Worcester Tornadoes, which is best known for having Jose Canseco for about like 3 games. I interned for them as well. So I tried to get as many internships as I possibly could just to get my foot in the door, because I didn't have any connections. I didn't know anybody. And so I got really lucky with that job at TAG. And from there, it kind of grew.
I'm going to assume were a lot of those unpaid, all of them unpaid, or were some of them paid, some of them not?
All of those were unpaid. It sucked, man. So I was landscaping. And then even my first job at TAG, I mean, it might as well have been unpaid. Like, I graduated from college and I was JV basketball coach at my high school. I was landscaping. I was working in this like warehouse in Worcester just because like I wanted a job in radio or TV. I just couldn't find a full-time one. So I had to like piece all this stuff together to make it work. And that's what I did for like the first 6 months. And then I got lucky and they made me full-time and stuff. But before that, like it was not pretty. It was not pretty.
I'm sure people listening right now they would never do that. Like they would never do. You did so many internships. So what made you get through that? Did you see the end in sight? What made you get through all these unpaid internships? What made you continue doing that and not saying, forget this?
Yeah, I mean, I just loved it. Like I fell in love with it, and the opportunities I got, like at NBC10, like my internship might have been unpaid, but they were letting me go to Gillette and like go inside the locker room and stuff like that. I mean, that's ridiculously cool to me, at least, right? And so that kind of motivated me. Number one, like the experiences that I was getting as an intern, and then doing the radio stuff is something I always wanted to do. So that was unbelievable too. And so just kind of making those connections and getting those opportunities motivated me. And I knew that was really what I wanted to do. So, knowing that kind of just propelled me to continue to work at it. And then look, my goal was to be on Boston radio, and I got super lucky because by like 23 or 24, I had done it. But, it was a lot of hard work. And look, the other thing too that people don't, I think, understand about it is like your schedule is never going to be normal, which I think is very underrated. Like you work really weird hours. I don't really know my schedule up until like a few days before, especially at 98.5, but even here at NBC10, like, I think my off days this week were going to be Wednesday, Thursday, but now I'm going to opening day Thursday. So now that like, it's crazy. You work a lot of nights, and that's an underrated thing. Holidays, you work holidays too. Like that, you do miss stuff. There's no question about it. Like in terms of like hanging out with friends or spending like Christmas with your family and stuff like that. That's definitely a downer. But overall, not a lot of people are going to feel bad for you when you get paid to watch the Patriots. That's what I always tell people.
Well, maybe last year.
Yeah. No, last year you're absolutely right. I didn't get paid enough. I didn't get paid enough last year. Yeah.
My last interview was with my friend. He's a plumber in Rhode Island for Statewide, and he loves Cam Newton. I don't know why.
I don't know how that happens. Yeah.
I actually just released it now during the podcast. He wore a Cam Newton jersey the whole time. And I'm like, all right, I got a highlight video for everyone. We're going to watch Cam Newton's best plays. And he's like, all right, he's all pumped. And I found a video on YouTube, every Cam Newton interception 2020. It's like 3 minutes long.
It's just
and the worst is the screen
game.
pass.
Yeah.
The worst is the screen pass in LA. And he I'm like,
that game was brutal. That was the game where I was like, because I don't know. I still thought I wasn't full blown to the path, but I was like kind of feeling good after that Chargers game. And then that Rams game, it was over before it started. That was tough. Yeah.
I think the season was over before it got started.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Bring back Jimmy G. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh man, I lost my train of thought. So, what was I just gonna ask you? I got off topic with the Cam Newton hatred because I hate Cam Newton.
I know. I see red too. Whenever I see it, I just lose. I'll try. Yeah, I still can't believe the Patriot.
He's a good guy. Like I just.
Yeah. No, 100%. He just can't throw the football. That's a problem.
No.
Yeah.
Before we get into the Sports Hub, what was the first athlete you interviewed or first game that you went to? You had to interview someone. You remember that moment?
Yeah, so I have a couple. I was, like I said, I was a double major, communications and education, because I wasn't sure if the communication stuff was going to work out. And so at the end of my internship at TAG, it was work. I was doing it was news talk. Jordan Levy's the former mayor of Worcester, and he had a drive time show 3 to 6. And so my last day there, I was just screening calls, editing audio, just kind of like behind the scenes stuff that whole summer was what that internship was, right? And so my last day, the producer who I've become really friendly with and still am to this day was like, oh, let's get him on for like 5 minutes, interview him because he did a great job this summer. And so that was like my first on-air experience. And I get in there and I just totally froze. He was like, who are you? I was like, I'm a I tried to say communications. I'll never forget. I have the recording. I'll have to send it to you. But I was like, I'm a communicator, and like couldn't even get it out. And then Jordan looked at me like, I don't know if I can swear on this or not.
Okay.
This kid, like, what? Got me off there like 30 seconds. I was like, I guess I'm going to be a teacher because that was a disaster. That was my first on-air experience. And then after that, my first athlete was probably a Patriot. I don't really remember who it was, but I was going to Gillette as an intern a ton in the fall, and that was an unbelievable experience. So it was probably a Patriot at some point.
You ever meet Brady?
I've met Brady. I've asked Brady questions. I went out of my way to ask him questions because I just wanted to check that off the list. Whenever he walked by in the locker room, I would always like kind of put myself in the way, and that way I'd be like, "Oh, sorry," and like hit him on like the back and stuff like that. I was the guy, and then also like Stacey James, who's like one of the best PR people in all sports, was around. This is probably in practice like a couple of years ago, and Brady like tosses his Under Armour cleats like in the trash, and I was like, hey, remember the dude that stole his jersey in the Super Bowl? Like, I wanted those cleats so bad, but I was like, I'm going to get my credentials pulled for life by Stacey if he sees me walk out of here with two Under Armour cleats. So I didn't pull the trigger on that. No. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I can't believe you threw him out.
He was throwing him away. Come on. Why wouldn't I just like, let me take him? Yeah.
You wore a new pair of cleats every day. I guarantee you. Every practice. You bring up an interesting point. A lot of people, I've obviously thought about a career or a semi-career in broadcasting because I love it. And that's why I do this podcast. And I think there's so many different ways now to get to that level. I mean, back then, I don't know when podcasts start. Maybe sometime before, I don't know, maybe even sooner before this decade. But I think podcasts and just the opportunity you have now to get into that field is so much easier than before. But one of the things you bring up, or I want to bring up, is the importance of connections. And I don't mean like connections to bad people. I mean like connections to become successful. I've talked to a lot of people who went to like Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and they looked at me. They're like, it doesn't mean crap unless you have connections and you're able to build relationships with people to get to the Sports Hub, to get to ESPN, to get to all these levels. So what is the importance of connections with people?
No, it's huge, man. It's huge, and it's such a good point by you. Like I look at all the opportunities that I've gotten, and whether it was through interning, I mean that's pretty much how I got my foot in the door at every single place. So I interned at WTAG. And then they gave me my first job. I interned at Channel 3 in Worcester, and they gave me my first job in TV. I interned at NBC10, stayed in contact with those guys. And when a sports job opened up, I had those connections, and I had put in the work. And so it was kind of a natural fit. 98.5 is really the one outlier where I didn't really have any connections when that happened. And that's a whole separate story. But, you know, for anyone that's trying to break in, that's why internships, like I tell people, do, you know, a lot of colleges will be like, you have one internship to do and that's your credit and you're good. But if you really want to break into this industry, because just at how few jobs and opportunities there are, if you especially want to do it in this market, you have to know people. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is do internships, and not only do them, but actually like do them well, right? Because, you know, we get, I would say 95% of our interns absolutely crush it, and we would do anything for them now. And then you get some that like would leave a note when I go out and do the 6 o'clock news, or like had to go home, see it. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess you did, but like, you know what I mean? So I just think if you get an internship, do it really well, make those connections, and that's really going to be your foot in the door moving forward. And I think it's a great point too. Like ultimately this whole thing comes down to reps and just continuously doing it. And so
it's like basketball.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, I didn't put in enough reps in basketball. Thanks for bringing that up again. I appreciate that. But like doing a podcast is unbelievable. That's a great experience. Like for me, I did college radio like once every 2 weeks, I think, for like 45 minutes with like me and two buddies. And that was kind of it. Like that's just, you're not going to get better if you're doing something, you know, once every couple weeks for 30 minutes, you know, and so having a podcast is an awesome opportunity. Like you said, to just put in the reps, because that's really what it comes down to is reps.
I definitely listened to when we started, a couple of my buddies. It was supposed to be a sports podcast. It was sports music, and we started that in the beginning, and then I kind of morphed it into interviews and wanting to talk to people around the community and give them a platform, even if they didn't need it, just an additional platform to talk and learn. It's experience for myself. But I remember listening to the first couple podcasts we did. Not good.
And nobody is. Nobody is.
No, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, no, 100% everyone is. And I think that that's one of the things that, like, in terms of reps, look, you're put in situations that aren't normal, whether it's being on TV and being under bright lights, like wearing makeup, and then your job is to look normal in a very unnatural situation. And the same thing with radio, like you are talking into a microphone or doing a podcast that it's just it's very difficult to act normal in situations that aren't normal. And that just comes with reps, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. And that's why, you know, as a junior, being at WTAG, and they asked me what my major was, I couldn't get it out. So I'm glad I've improved a little bit, at least from those days. But you're 100% right. Doing the podcast is an awesome way to get really, really good, really, really fast. Like it's unbelievable the jump you make, whether it's TV or radio, just in 6 months doing something continuously. Yeah.
I don't know if you have any. I know certain reporters, like I can't think of an example off my head. Although, like, all right, Tom Brady, Jim Gray, even though Jim Gray is a huge national, like they have a connection, and Brady, I know for sure, tells him things, and it's always been brought up. What are the factors in building trust? I don't know if you have that connection with athletes. I don't know who they would be, but if you had a connection, let's say with like David Duke or something, and he would confide in you and say, "No, Tim, I'm feeling this way." Say it in a anonymous, I don't know. However, that is, what are the tips and tricks that you do to build trust with athletes? So, hey, instead of talking to this guy, I don't like this guy, I want to talk to Tim. I'll give him the all access interview on NBC10. Like what are the tips and tricks to that? So
it's all about relationships. And so it's building relationships to get the job. And then it's building relationships once you have the job in terms of who you're talking to. And if you have something in common with someone, you know, you certainly have to bring that up. And if I know someone's from somewhere where I'm from, or if they've experienced something similar to me, that's fine. Also, just being like a nice, like, person that you enjoy talking to goes a long way as well. And then if you actually do a story on someone, do a good job on it. And then, you know, that kind of builds trust as well, right? And don't try to like knife someone in the back, which, you know, like, look, you know, here we do Patriot stuff. We do college basketball is probably the closest in terms of building relationships and stuff like that you're kind of talking about. And it's just, like you said, building building that trust, building those relationships up, and that goes a long way too.
I gotta ask you, what are the best resources you have used over your journey? And I mean, podcasts or YouTube or books. If you had to name 2 or 3, what are the best resources that have made you who you are today?
This is going to sound like a broken record, but honestly, like the people that I've worked with that have done my job before, that I've gotten kind of the experience from, and whether I go back to, Channel 3 in Worcester with Kevin Shea and Andy LaCombe, were probably, I don't know if you have any connection to Central Mass. Those 2 guys are legends. If you played high school sports there,
I'm a Johnson boy.
Yeah, those 2 guys. But then like Frank and Joe at Channel 10, like those guys were huge in terms of kind of teaching me about TV. And then in radio, like all those guys at 98.5 and then people at TAG as well have been huge. And that's kind of the biggest thing. Like, at TAG, like they gave me intermission reports. They gave me football. They gave me like a 30-minute show about the Worcester Sharks. And they were terrible. I was not good. Like I have the hand up. I'll be the first to admit it. But they like kind of explained to me, all right, you need to do this, or hey, that sounded good, or that like your energy needs to be up. You need to try this. You need to try that. And it's just kind of tinkering with that stuff. But having people that you can actually like show your work to and be like, what do you actually think of this? And then give you the honest opinion is huge. And that was kind of the biggest thing. And in terms of that stuff, just also like listening to a lot of sports talk radio and figuring out like, all right, I actually like this that this person does, or like, I don't like that. And I think, figuring out topics that people are going to be interested in. I think Felger, one of the things that he is unbelievable at is figuring out, there are some days when topics are going to be really, really obvious. But I remember, and this is before I was even at 98.5, and this is how big of a loser I am that I even remember this. But like, I remember it was one like summer day and everyone was just kind of either talking Patriots or talking like Red Sox. And it was the same stuff. Like pretty much every show was just kind of rolling out the same thing. And he came in with this take about Aaron Rodgers and like comparing him to Brady that like really no one had done before. And like, look, I know it sounds kind of like whatever, but in that moment, I was like, this guy just gets it. Like, this is a very interesting topic. It's unique. It's something that no one has talked about. He's bringing this totally different aspect to this Brady conversation that everyone's doing. Mm-hmm. And it was just like those 2 hours or however long they stayed on that topic. I was like, this is why he's the best at what he does, because he came in with this completely different take on something and tied it in and just made a very bland topic that everyone else was doing completely different.
He is, Felger and Maz have been, when I used to teach martial arts, when I DJ, every day since, it's got to be like 8 years, I would sit 2 o'clock and watch the first hour before I would go off. And both of them, everyone in the sports hub is amazing. Everyone, they're amazing at what they do. They're captivating, but the way him and even Maz can spin things and make it so, and it could sound preposterous. Like they could sound completely nuts, and Jim, like, but they are so perfect at being able to draw attention to their show to make it the number one show at 2 o'clock. And that's the one thing I noticed by it. They can make it so interesting. They have such different takes. Yeah. And even if they don't believe it, they sell it so good. They've definitely been a part of my life. They're excellent at what they do, and everyone is. That brings me, my next point is, before we go into the sports hubs, I'd love to hear your journey about the sports hub. Up until this date, what would you say has been the biggest failure for you? In terms of anything in your journey, what would you say has been the biggest failure for you? And how did you grow from it? Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, like, so I thought, I thought I was probably going to have a job in TV that I was lined up to get right out of college. And I thought that was going to be kind of the path that I was going to go down. And I didn't get it. I didn't think the TAG job was even an option at that point. And so I didn't think my career, I thought my career, honestly, because I didn't get that one TV job, was kind of over before it started. And so I was actually going to look into teaching and just kind of, because I didn't have without that, I didn't think that there was really a path necessarily to the way I was going to do it. But getting the job at TAG and then figuring stuff out at Channel 3 afterwards with the TV stuff, it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I didn't get that first job, because it would not have worked out the way that it did for me. So like, I do think kind of everything happens for a reason, because I was pretty devastated at that point when I didn't get that job, because I really did think it was a done deal, and it wasn't. And I kind of had to scramble, and I lucked out. I got really lucky with the TAG thing. And from there, it kind of took off for me, which I'm very fortunate for. But that was probably the biggest failure. And it was before my career even started. My other failures, honestly, were probably like the first time I ever hosted. The first time I ever hosted at 98.5 was Celtics at 7. I had done headlines and stuff like that. I mean, I'll never forget, like, my first time. Look, I told you my goal in my career was to do Boston radio. And so at 24, I'm on the Sports Hub for the first time. And I'm doing headlines for the hockey show on a Saturday. It was my first ever shift. And I'm like drenched in sweat. I'm so nervous. And like, I'm 24. Look, headlines, you're honestly reading out loud. It shouldn't be that difficult, right? Like, we're not curing cancer here.
I can do the whole script right now.
It's fine, right? But like, the hockey show is the one show where there are a million people in studio. So like, at that point, you had Ryan Johnston, you had Dave Gosher, Bob Beers, Billy Jaffe, all in studio. I think Hags was in studio too. And then Bertrand and Gasper were waiting to do the 11, so they were there. And then Jimmy Stewart was producing at that point on the weekends, on Saturdays that morning too. So like, all of these people that I had grown up like watching and listening to were in studio for my first headline. I didn't know any of them. They were like, "Who the hell is this kid?" Like I said, drenched in sweat. I get through it. I'm like, "All right, good." And at that point, we had a text machine, which the text machine was just like a Twitter, pretty much, where people could text in and then it shows up on it. And like, the first text I think was like, "New headlines guy sounds fat." And I was
yeah. I remember you sharing. I think you shared this like a month ago.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means, man. But like, obviously it rattled me. I was like, "That tough start." And so that was my first ever on air shift at 98.5, and I was so nervous for that. But it was nowhere to go but up after being called fat from my first headline read. Yeah.
Oh my God. Before we get into your sports journey, just quickly, you can follow Tim McKone at Tim_McKone. He won't be posting anything for a while, but you can follow him on there. You can follow him on NBC10. And before we go to Sports Hub, shout out to Dan Jahing and Mark Searles. I partied with them at the LLS Society event like 2 years ago.
The best.
It was they were awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, they were phenomenal. They hosted the event, and I met Mario Hilario a few times.
Yeah.
Shout out to all of them. Let's talk about your sports journey. So you talked about the headlines, and that's a great story. But what's your sports journey? What was it like getting the call?
Yeah.
Saying you're going to be a part of it.
So I don't know if you've ever heard this, but so they in 2000 and I forget when it was, honestly, 6 years ago maybe, they did a Sports Hub talent search. Like I said, this was the one time like I never had gotten, I didn't have any connections to 98.5 or EEI, and so like, as that being my goal, like I didn't know how to get my foot in the door.
Did you work for WEI at all or no?
No, never. I'd never done Boston radio at all, and so 98.5 did a talent search. And a few thousand people, I forget what it was. It was a crazy number of people do like headlines and stuff. And then they pared it down to 10 people. And I was one of the final 10, which I like could not believe. And then they did interviews with those 10 people. And then from 10 people, they went to 4. I was one of the final 4. And then the final 4 did live radio with Hardy at Hurricane O'Reilly's. And so what they did was they did 2 hours of live radio at Hurricane O'Reilly's, and each person got a half hour with Hardy. And at the end, they had the program director, assistant program director, who's not the program director, and it might have been just those two. I'm not sure who else was doing it, but they were judging. And at the end, they were going to pick the final person, and they were going to get a job at 98.5. And so I get to call them in the final 4. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. So all my buddies go to the bar, and the way they set it up was like, I think it started at like 7 or 8. So when we first got there weren't a lot of people there. It was just my buddies. And then a girl went first, and I was getting texts from people that weren't there, because even when there weren't a lot of people there, you really couldn't hear. They had speakers, but you couldn't really hear what people were saying. So you had no idea how it was going for anyone that was there. And so I was getting texts from people that were listening to 98.5, and I went second. And they were like, you got it. Like, you crushed it. You did great. Even Hardy afterwards was like, that was awesome. Like, great job. And so I'm feeling great. And then Matt McCarthy went
golden
third.
voice.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And he went third. And like 2 minutes in, I get texts. They're like, you got no shot, dude. Like, this guy's gonna, he's gonna win.
Perfect.
What?
His voice is perfect.
Perfect.
Oh
it's
my
perfect. God. And it was baseball season, and there's nobody in Boston that knows baseball better than he does. And like, he crushed it, and he's really talented. So like, I get texts, and they're like, you got no shot, dude. And I was like, like, this was my dream. I don't know how else I'm going to get in at 98.5. And so all my buddies are there, and I was like, all right, screw it. Like, let's just start drinking. We're at a bar anyways. And I got to be here for another hour, and I'm not going to win. So whatever. So we start taking shots, drinking. Great. I get pretty banged up. And then after McCarthy goes, the program director's like, hey, just a heads up, like brings us up there, like, whoever wins is going to do another 15 minutes with Hardy. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, so wait, if I win, I'm going to be buckled on air and get fired like before I even start.
Oh my
And
God.
then I'm like freaking out. And then
Was it good stuff though? Were you drinking, or was it just beers?
it was some shots.
Nice.
And then some beers. And so then I was not in a good place. I had just lost my dream job. I wasn't feeling great. And so then he's like, you got live radio. I'm like, oh my God. Well, if I do win, they're going to fire me within 2 minutes anyways. And so luckily, Matt ended up winning. And then I was lucky enough to get a call a week later or a few days later. And they were like, hey, we still really liked you. If you want to come in and do some stuff with us, we'd love to have you. And so I got really lucky. And that's how I got my foot in the door at 98.5. And me and McCarthy probably hated each other at first, that first night. But he's probably my best friend now at 98.5. I'd say he's an awesome guy. And that's kind of how that whole thing started.
Do you ever see them doing that talent show?
So they did it the year after Sean Silver won it. And then they stopped after that. I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, like I said, for our year, there were like thousands of people that did it. It was really successful. And I think Sean's was a similar thing. So I would imagine at some point they're going to do that again. But it was a really cool experience. And again, I got really lucky because I don't know how else I would have gotten my foot in the door at 98.5 if it wasn't for that. So it worked out.
You walked into 98.5, you walked into the building. Who was, like, you saw someone and you're like, oh my God, that's them. That's them. That's the God. Who is that one person that you were like?
Yeah, so I'll tell you this story. I did a half hour of radio with Hardy. And so I didn't know anybody. And so Bertrand and Gasper, after that show, like at that point, headline shifts on the weekends were pretty long. So I got like the last 20 minutes of the hockey show, Bertrand and Gasper, and then Hardy and Troop was the show after. And I was going to do like the first hour of that show with them. And so I didn't know anybody, but I had just done 2 weeks ago a half hour radio with Hardy, and Hardy comes up to me after, was like, you did a great job. And then after I lost, was like, hey man, stay in touch. Like, that was awesome. Like, you're always like, I'm always going to be there. If you need to bounce anything off me, feel free. And he walks in the door. I'm like, that's my guy. Like that's the guy that knows me. And he's like, hey, what's up? I'm Hardy. Nice to meet you. And I'm like, what? I had no recollection of who I was. I was like, are you serious, man? And so he always tells that story too. Cause he was like, yeah, I had no idea. He was like, I had no idea.
Really? Do you like look different or something? Like,
no, same. I've looked the same since I was like 14. And so I always bust his balls about that. But
oh my God.
Probably the first like regular fill-in shift. So I think that was Gresh and Zoe at the time. Or then the first Felger and Maz I ever did, I was probably like, this is ridiculous. You know, those were probably the first two that really kind of hit home for me.
Tony Maz sent my mom a video for Christmas.
He's the best.
I would make my mom watch it, and she still did. I'm like, Mom, it's Felger Maz time.
Yeah.
We're watching it for 25 minutes, and he sent her a video. I thought she was gonna cry.
Yeah.
She was like, oh my, yeah. It was nuts. Tell me about ball gagging Mike Felger. I saw a picture of that.
Yeah, so that was
I forgot what that was for.
So that was, we were doing, I filled in, and it was me, Jim, and Felger on one day. And he said, if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, I think, or maybe that if they get to the Super Bowl, you can ball gag me. Because, like, I forget what that offseason was, but it was coming off of the loss to the Eagles and all the drama that was going on.
Yeah,
and
that was the Malcolm Butler. That was
like they got no shot. And if they make it to the Super Bowl, you can ball gag me. And I was like, I'm all set. Yeah, I was like, I don't need to do that. Like, I have no interest. Like, that's not a win for me. And then he texts me, like, I think after, because who they beat? The Chargers, I think, in the first round.
Yeah, it was the Chargers, then the
who was the AFC that the Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, Chargers team. They went on the road. Yep.
So after that Chargers game, Felger texts me. He's like, "This, like, we might do this. Like, this might happen." And so then, sure enough, after the Chiefs game is when he did it, and he stepped up and I ball gagged him. The funny story about that too is, like, at that time I was on Twitter all the time. I just never tweeted. It wasn't like really, like, I don't know. I didn't do it a lot. Probably something I should be doing more, and I have over the last year. But where I work at NBC, they track kind of what you tweet out to see, like, what's successful and what isn't. So, like, if I tweet a story about, let's say, Ed Cooley and, you know, what he did this offseason, and that blows up, they can tell other sports anchors across the country, hey, like, this story about, you know, this college basketball coach did really well. So if you want to, like, kind of find something like that in your market, do it. And so that video and that picture I tweeted out, and my boss at NBC, who obviously came from Boston too, so knows all those guys really well, texts me. He's like, hey, like, I just want you to know, like, your account is getting flagged by corporate because, like, you're up, like, it was something like 500,000% from what your normal stories are, because everyone's watching this video. I think it was like over like 1 million views or something like that. Me ball gagging Felger. And he was like, so they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh, what's this guy in Providence doing that we can tell everyone else in different markets to do? And they're going to watch you ball gag another guy. I just want you to know that. I was like, that was tough. So that was some tough explaining to do to corporate on the TV side of things. But yeah, that was a story about ball gagging Felger.
Let me ask you this. There's a lot of myths about any profession. So what's a common myth that you would say is said about becoming a sports broadcaster in your journey? What is a myth that you would like to debunk? Or maybe a myth that is true? I don't know.
Yeah, no. So for us, I mean, like, I don't know, like, everyone at 98.5 is awesome to work with. Like, so I think that some people I get that question all the time. What's it like working with Felger or Maz, or like, what's it like working with Jones? He's so negative in this. Jones is one of my favorite people at the station to work with, and he's the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. I'm telling you that right now. Jones is an absolute sweetheart off the air. And so,
like, every guy you can go out and, like, have a drink with at a bar. If you saw them, they'd have a drink with you.
100 is perfect way to put it, right? And, like, yeah. Jim Murray is probably at the top of that list.
Yeah,
and
give you something else too.
Yeah. And so all those guys are like that. And so, like, the thing, like, oh, they're so negative, or like, oh, this and that, like that. I'm telling you right now, you would love every single person at 98.5, and they've been awesome to me when they really had no reason to be. So I'm always thankful for that. And the same has been on the TV side as well. I think the other myths that it really, I mean, it's what you think it is. It's pretty awesome. The schedule is really the only drawback. Like, that can be really tough at times if you're, you know, not doing Christmas with your family and stuff because you have to work. Like, that can be tough. And then not having, like, you know, a typical Saturday or a typical Sunday is weird. But again, like, that's a trade-off that I would make 10 times out of 10.
I feel like with me when I was younger, now I get it. Like, I don't get it because I'm not I'm not radio, but doing a podcast. But, like, I feel like when I was a teenager, I'd see that and be like, that's the easiest job in the world. I could do that. I could wake up tomorrow and do that. I feel like that is totally, there is so much more that goes into it.
Yeah, you just have to be on top of everything. And then I think the thing that, and I'm still trying to figure it out in terms of radio, especially if I have to host and stuff, is figuring out how to present stuff in a compelling way, right? So like what I talked about with Felger and that Aaron Rodgers stuff, like that's like very hard. Look, knowing stuff about the Patriots is one thing. Everyone I think knows that follows the Patriots, knows the Patriots well. Presenting opinions and things in a unique and compelling way is a skill. And so those guys are, and Maz and all those guys are very, very smart and very, very good at what they do. I promise you that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. I had a couple more questions. Before I ask the final two, I want to talk sports with you quick for like 2 minutes. The Celtics. I couldn't believe he did nothing. I don't care about these last 2 wins. Yeah, they looked good. Well, OKC, I could name no one off the team. Milwaukee was a good win. I won't take that away. But what's your thoughts on Danny? I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, look, he's in a brutal spot. Like I don't know if there's a clear path. And I said this, even when we were doing stuff over like Christmas and New Year's, like I don't see what the path is for Boston right now to really be a contender over the next year, because you don't really have a lot of assets left other than Jalen and Jason Tatum moving forward. Like Kemba, I'm a diehard UConn fan, but that knee is going to be an issue. And look, unless Robert Williams kind of continues to take steps and turn into a real trade asset, like it's going to be really hard for him to do it. One of my best friends growing up is Stool Greeny, the Celtics writer for Barstool. Mm-hmm. We grew up together. And so I'll text with him, and he's not in a good place. He's not in a good place. I don't know. Look, you're not going to be a contender right now in the East with Philly, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. I think are head and shoulders above you, and I don't think there's a way to get up there. And I really like what Chicago did. I don't know. I know they're not in the playoffs right now, but Chicago got a lot better at the deadline too, and that's a young, exciting team. So you're in a tough spot right now, and they're going to have a major shakeup, I think, this offseason. I think that's when you're going to look, and hopefully Bradley Beal shakes loose in Washington, and you can put together a package. I know you still have all your first round picks. Smart, Robert Williams. I don't know what Neesmith or Langford in terms of their trade value, what that is, but hopefully you can kind of put something together, and the Beal Tatum connection, he can kind of force his way to Boston. And I think that's really your one path.
The 2 quick points for me is, number one, I love Tatum. I think Tatum's a more talented player.
Yep.
I think Brown is the overall better player. I don't know what it means in the long run, but if I can try to keep both of them, I'm doing it. And if you can get Beal without giving up either one of them, then I flip the script on Danny Ainge. I would be happy with that. My other point, the other 2 points is, I can't believe they couldn't offer Marcus Smart for Vucevic. I am dumbfounded by that. And picks. They were saying it today. I think on Zol and Beetle, they were saying today, like you could have offered Marcus Smart and picks to get, and other players to get Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. Like it's like the Gordon Hayward thing. Like you left so much on the table in the offseason and got nothing for him. Got nothing for him.
Yeah.
And then my final thing was, I'm not the biggest fan of Brad Stevens anymore. I just don't think he's the guy for the future of this team.
It's going to be interesting, right? I have a huge crush on Brad Stevens from his Butler days, because I'm a diehard college basketball fan, I loved him. But the chemistry stuff is an issue, and it's going to be interesting here again. This offseason is going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to be a stand pat offseason, that's for sure. So we'll see what shakes loose, but there's going to have to be changes, because there's something wrong just from a chemistry perspective. And I'm with you with the Tatum and Brown thing, because I think some of that chemistry issue is probably in terms of Jason Tatum. Shocker, a Duke guy. I hate Duke, and you know what?
I hate Kyrie.
Yeah. Oh my God, don't get me started on that too. I'm with you on that.
No, I can't stand him. Great player, but I can't stand him.
Yeah.
My 2 final quick questions I like to ask, and then we'll play. I got a quick game for us. The first one, if you could step into my shoes right now, and you're hosting, you do that all the time. But if you could ask yourself one question that maybe I didn't ask you, what would that question be?
Yeah, so like if you want to break in, I think what you kind of touched on a little bit, but the advice I always give to people is it's really kind of 3 things, right? And the first is try to do as many internships as you possibly can and build those relationships up. Number 2, it's all reps. It's just continuously doing it. I can't stress enough how much better you get at radio and TV, if you just do it consistently for 6 months. 6 months in TV, it's unbelievable how much better you get if you do it on a daily basis. Because again, it's just acting natural in an unnatural situation. That's really what TV comes down to. And then the third thing I would say, and it's a piece of advice I got from someone at ESPN that was friends with my college roommate's dad at the time, when I ran into him at like a barbecue or something like that, maybe a graduation party. And he knew I was getting into it. And he said, is that you can get a production assistant job or a behind the scenes job at ESPN or NBC Sports Boston or Nesson out of school, and you'll be working at a place that is really, really cool right away. But your transition to go to on camera or be on air and on TV, it's not going to happen, right? Like, you're going to be looked at as a behind the scenes person. So if you want to do on air stuff, go to a smaller market, start a podcast, do some videos, and market yourself as an on-air talent. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be really hard to transition afterwards to being on air. So if you want to be on air and if you want to do that stuff, do what you're doing right now and start a podcast, do some videos, go to a smaller market like I did with Worcester. And I got really lucky because my smaller market was where I grew up and I didn't even have to move like that. I got really, really lucky in that sense. But do that stuff versus being a production assistant if you want to be on air. Because you're not going to jump from behind the scenes one day at ESPN to then hosting Sports Center the next day. That's not the way it works.
No, those are great tips. My final question for our game: if you're the host right now, what's one question you would ask me? Flipping it.
All right, best guest you've ever had on the show.
Best guest. Ooh. Oh my God. Well, obviously this is a very
you had to say that. This was okay, but first one.
Everyone, I had to say you, of course. I was so happy when you said yes. I was like, I hope I'm not bothering you, please. Oof. I had this girl named Samantha Ranchi. She is, and I actually did a series, and I'm still going to do them, where I interviewed some teenagers. One of them was a young lady I used to train in martial arts, and she makes cakes, and all her money goes to Travis Roy Foundation, most of it, because she had a close personal relationship with Travis Roy until he passed, and then it goes to other charities. And she talked about the cakes and all that stuff. But I had this young lady, and so other boy Devin, who's in a rock band. He's 16. He started his own band. He is so talented. He talked about it. Samantha, she does Sammy send-offs, and she sends care packages to kids and families who have cancer, or the kid has had cancer, and she was inspired by a young lady, a young girl who passed from cancer, and they had a special relationship. And just talking with her, she ended up getting Matt Slater to donate with her.
Oh, that's awesome.
And to deliver a package, and that was one of the most inspirational. But she said it was, her whole story was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
I would definitely say them.
And then, so for you, have you felt getting a lot more comfortable as you continue to do these podcasts and stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. From the beginning, absolutely. I've always been too confident. I've always been like that. I've never been shy in front of people because that was all I did for my whole life, especially DJing. But I think the one thing I needed to get more comfortable was actually the planning part of saying, okay, I'm not going to just randomly throw out questions during the show. I need to get more comfortable with the actual process of, okay, let's find out more about this person. Let's find out, interest, so I can ask them and incorporate those in the show with them. So that's definitely the more thing. And I've watched and been like, okay, maybe my camera or video quality or the way I talked, I was too loud, or I could have adjusted the volume just a little bit more. So definitely those are the things I felt I got more comfortable with.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Those are great questions. So again, thank you. Interview with Tim McKone. We're going to end it with a final game. You're not expecting this. It's a segment where I surprise my guests. You have no clue what's about to happen. It's going to be completely random. But luckily, you're a basketball fan. It's time to play Name That.
It's time to play Name That.
And one thing I would improve is that intro, which I'm working on. I do a great DMX impersonation, so that was my DMX voice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I gotta work on that intro. But anyway, we play Name That. I'm gonna post pictures of a random thing, and you have to guess what it is. So today's topic is Name That Celtic. It is not as easy as you think it is. So I'm gonna post a picture of a rare Celtics play, and I tried to keep it within the past 20 years. Yeah, I didn't even know a couple of these guys.
I'm in.
So let's do it. I got 5. All you literally have to do is get like one answer right, and you're better than every guest on the show. Most of them, I did like Name That Nut Butter with Hank's from Hank's Peanut Butter. I don't know if you had the protein peanut butter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he did. He was like, he got all of them right. I was like cashew butter, walnut butter. Oh, I was like, all right, how do you know that? All right, first one. Tell me who this is.
Oh man, this is
like 2012, 11ish.
so like initially I wanted to say Fab, but that's not Fab Mello, is it?
Rest in peace. No.
Oh my God, I should know this too. I don't. I have no idea who that is.
That is Sean Williams.
Oh, I should have gotten that. I should have gotten.
Like,
I'm so mad at myself now.
Average like 2.8 points a game.
Yeah.
In like 2 years. So that was Sean Williams. All right, next one we have. Might know him.
Oh my God, dude, you're gonna crush me on this.
Let me play this video. See if you remember this video. This went viral like a few years ago. Actually, almost 9 years ago. I don't know if you remember this video. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. We go. Oh, yes. Oh, here we go. And bam.
Oh.
Yeah. You don't remember this?
I don't remember that. Who is that?
That is Chris Joseph eating his booger.
Oh,
before he got traded in the Kevin Garnett deal.
That's tough. That's a tough video. That's tough.
I think he played like 1 year after that. He went over.
Yeah.
He was like Juwan Johnson. Terrible. All right. This next one, I really don't even remember this guy. Oh, wait after it.
Oh, Bimbo Coles.
No way. How did you go with that?
Come on, man. No, that's the error. Like I can do that. Yeah. Come on.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're 1 out of 3 so far.
I'm mad at myself for those first 2. I'll be honest.
I never even heard of Bimbo Coles, ever. Then maybe this one's gonna be easy for you.
That's Kedrick.
Oh my God, you got it, man.
There's no. I was all in on Kedrick. I nerd out on the NBA draft. That's like one of my big things. Probably like my favorite day of the year. I'll be honest.
Yes, and the trade deadline.
Yeah, and so I was at that draft. I remember I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and me and my buddy were just like, I wanted Jason Richardson so bad. He went 5, but like I loved Joe Forte. That was 01. Yeah.
So it's just like
yeah. So like that. So that draft was Joe Johnson, Kedrick, and Joe Forte, and because they had 3 first-round picks, and swing and a miss on Joe and Kedrick. But Kedrick, man, could dunk. He could dunk. The freak athlete.
I think it's the last name Brown. I mean, you got D Brown,
yeah,
Brown,
yeah,
Kedrick Brown. I don't know. All right, final one. Let's see. This is my man. He was my favorite player.
I know this too.
He was my favorite player back in 2010, the year they traded Perkins, which we won't talk about.
I should know this one. I'm mad at myself. I'm going to be mad at myself when you say his name.
Let's play a little video. I hope this made you remember.
And Orlando 4-2 before losing in the championship to the Lakers in 7. A missed slam, and O'Neal called for double dribble.
Well, he ran into his own teammate, or actually I should say Von Wafer ran into him. So back-to-back.
Is that Von? So it's Von Wafer?
That's Von Wafer.
I was a big Von guy at I think he went to Florida State, right?
Yep.
That was a big Von Wafer guy. That's tough. That's a tough video. That's like the Kemba one where Kemba thought when he was in Charlotte, when he thought he knocked down that 3, and it rimmed out too. It's a very similar situation.
Yeah, that was Von Wafer. Never saw him again.
2 for 5, man. I'm disappointed in myself. I should have got.
I'll give you one more.
All right.
I'll give you one more bonus one. It's nothing to do with the Celtics. I did this the other day. Name this TV show, please. If you get it wrong, Tim, I'll never look at you the same. Please.
Oh, Doug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What's your favorite Nick show of all time? You grew up during the '90s, Nick. Which is the best?
I did. So, oh man, Doug's probably up there. Nick shows. Are You Afraid of the Dark is probably up there too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably it. That's probably number one. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give you that one. So you went 3 to 6. You went 50%. So you're in like the top 10 of this game. So congratulations.
I thought I would have done better. I'm disappointed in myself. Yeah.
Oh no, that was awesome. So that has been Name That.
It's time to play Name That.
Like I've said 100 times today, it was an honor, really. Someone I look up to and learn from. And again, when I watch and listen to these shows, I'm like, all right, Tim or Joe Murray did. I would love to talk about Joe Murray about air fryers one day. And I know nothing about them. I would love to just ask him the best one. But just having you come on today, big guest, and I had a pleasure. I hope you did too. Thank you so much for coming on today. Your story is definitely influential, and I'm showing the wrong logo right now. That is the Dad and Bud podcast. So shout out to them. Dad and Bud is actually run by the head coach of LaSalle football.
Oh, nice.
Bill Winfield. But we're gonna put my logo back up there. But anyway, thank you so much, Tim, for coming on today. Where can we find you currently, even though you're doormatted?
Yeah, at Tim_McKone is where you can find me. Hopefully, in a few days, I'll have that account back up and running. Your boy didn't do. Yeah, rule 1 of the internet: don't click on links that get sent to you randomly. And I did it right in time for the trade deadline too, which is perfect. Yeah.
And you made another account, right? Or no? Did you
I did make another account. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
The Woj bombs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, thanks for having me, man. This was great. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, I would love to. Oh my God. It was, I would love to. Definitely check us out. MJR and Friends. We got a lot of great interviews coming up and episodes. We're going to be doing an April Madness music tournament. I don't know how it's going to run, to be honest with you, but it's going to be fun. We're going to compete with music artists and stuff. So, and we've got some other things coming up too. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tim. Check him out at NBC10 and 98.5. Sport. When are you going to be on 98.5 again? This week?
Yeah, maybe Thursday middays, but I might actually have to go to the Red Sox for that opening day. So we'll see. If not, then I'm sure the weekend. So we'll see. Yeah.
I can't wait to watch Dead Arm Eddie Rodriguez.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't even know what that is. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk soon. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website, mjrentertainment.com. Peace.
Avoid legal snags by telling people they're being recorded. You are being recorded.
And literally, when I tell you 3 days, I'm just.
So long to do something like
Go.
whoa.
I would tell that person to just do it.